Howdy, gang. It is Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Hey, we just keep plugging along, don't we? We just keep going and going and going. I'm coming at you tonight to talk about strategic planning for a couple of reasons. One, in the last couple months, two corporations have reached out to me to help them. They've hired me to help them create strategic plans, which is awesome. I mean, it's really fun. Most of my work is with solopreneurs, coaches, healers, things like that. But you know what? It is fun to work with corporations. I live in Spokane now, and I moved to Spokane in 2007 to run a corporation. I was a CEO for a real estate company. I had 200 agents in the office that I ran, and there is something about the corporate structure and culture that's exciting. There's a lot of energy and all that stuff, but I digress. I want to speak to you, regardless of whether you're a corporation or a solopreneur, about strategic planning. So what I've noticed when I ran the company, as well as what I'm doing now and what I'm preparing for these corporations, is, well, I've been a part of strategic planning processes in the past as a participant with organizations, and many times they're starchy and boring, and they're full of word-smithy language. Now, I say that, it's still fun to experience the conversation as a team, but what you ultimately end up with most of the time is some kind of a document that's very long and drawn out and wordy, and nobody revisits it, and it sits on a shelf, and there you go. What I think is more compelling for teams and for you, I'll just share part of the framework here. In order for the strategic plan to really inspire you and get under your skin, is for you to begin with where you're stuck. Now, that's sometimes in strategic plans, they'll call it like a SWOT, like what are your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and they'll throw that in there. But this is even before that. Like when you start to think about, like, what are the brutal facts of where you're stuck? Where are you stuck in your excuses? Where are you stuck in your patterns? Where are you stuck as a culture? If you're a corporation, if you can start to get very honest about where you're stuck, this very thing is what breathes new life into your business. I've experienced this personally as a solopreneur in my own business, that when I confront my own brutal facts, my own excuses, my own ceilings of achievement, there's something that activates me. I get part of me gets pissed off, like, why are you settling like that? Part of me gets embarrassed. Part of me gets recommitted to where I want to go. But I think a lot of it is just I stop pretending, right? I stop pretending, and that's one of the biggest hurdles for someone in business, whether you're a solopreneur or a corporation, is that space you start to pretend. I think we pretend for a lot of reasons. We pretend because we don't want to admit that we're not as far as we should be or want to be. I think we pretend because it looks bad to those we're trying to appear successful to. I think we pretend because it doesn't slow down momentum. Like, look, the reality is, to confront the brutal facts means you're going to have to stop, and you may have to reinvent some things. And to reinvent is not an easy process, right? Like, it's painful to reinvent yourself. And so it's easier to pretend, right? We just bury our head in the sand and pretend that nothing's wrong or nothing's happening. Even though you go to bed at night, put your head on your pillow and know that, man, this isn't working the way I want. So the first part of strategic planning isn't the goals. It's not the where do we want to go. It's the where are we stuck? Where am I stuck? And getting very honest and transparent about that. If you're in a team, you've got to be transparent with the team, right? You've got to talk to the team. The team has to talk to itself. But a lot of times the team doesn't want to talk to itself because it's afraid to offend people in the team. It's afraid to admit defeat, whatever stories we make up about it. If you're a solopreneur and on your own, it's just as hard to be honest with yourself sometimes. I know that because I hate feeling like I'm behind. Or here's what's worse. This is what's worse. I hate the thought that I've taken a wrong turn and that I might have to turn back, or that I might have to stop doing something that I've invested a lot of time or money into. I hate that thought. And sometimes when you start getting brutally honest with yourself, that's what shows up, right? I think we made a wrong turn a year ago or 2 years ago. I think I'm on the wrong path and I need to retool. That is such a hard conversation to have with yourself. And if we get to the heart of a strategic plan, ultimately it's about you making your important work matter in the world. It's about you actually building a business that works. It's about you reinventing in a way that leaves you enthused and excited and inspired by the work you're doing. Otherwise, why do a strategic plan? So, the beginning of your strategic plan always starts with, where are you stuck? What are the excuses? What's not working? You've got to confront the brutal facts. Then, now I'll leave you with this second part here, right? Then, once you have that brutally transparent and honest and documented, then you can actually start to look at where you want to go. I think a lot of times in strategic planning, people look at where they want to go, but they don't look at where they're stuck, right? So, once you decide, or once you define where you're stuck, it's interesting to see how the goals about where you want to go start to change. Because in getting honest about where you're stuck, you actually start to get honest about where you really want to go. Without getting honest about where you're stuck, what happens is you can create pie in the sky kind of dreams that sound good, or maybe are even outdated dreams you've had, but they're not at all oriented or related to where you're stuck. So part of your strategic planning is also getting very honest and oriented to where you actually want to go. Like, where do we actually want to go? Where do we really want to go? Based on where we're stuck, what's appropriate? What's realistic? And I think this is the cool part that's popping up for me right now as I'm saying this. Underneath all that, the essence of honesty is the thing that makes the strategic plan work. I think sometimes in strategic planning, bravado is what sort of wins out. It was like everybody's flying high on excitement, motivation. Let's go here, let's climb the mountain, all the stuff. But when you start to get really in the space of honesty, that's the thing that actually creates the plan that matters. That's the thing that creates the plan that you stick to. That's the one that has the stickiness to it, right? And that's what you want in a strategic plan. You don't need to do a strategic plan for a weekend or a day and then walk away and never revisit the plan. You want something that keeps pulling you forward, right? We call that future pull. When you set something out in your future and it just keeps pulling you forward because somehow in your honesty about where you're stuck and where you want to go, there's something that resonates in your soul. It's deep down in there and it just starts pulling you forward. And that's ultimately what we're looking for in a strategic plan. So here's what I'll leave you with. If you are a corporation and you like help with a strategic plan, I'm open to that. Like, reach out to me. I have massively discounted rates. Listen, when you look at what it costs to hire somebody to come do a strategic plan, to me, it's crazy. And for what you get, I don't know. My prices are crazy good for strategic planning. Now, if you're an individual, a solopreneur, a healer, a coach, or somebody, and you just need to be more strategic, period, then where I would start you off is to go to groundswellmethod.com, because that is the place that it always starts for a solopreneur. Like, it just is. Like, you got to start to really, solopreneurs and corporations are in different spaces. So if you're a corporation, you can just private message me. If you are a solopreneur, you can go to groundswellmethod.com. Start with the videos there, because that starts to explain the whole world of finding your message, finding your voice, leading a conversation in the world. And from that place, you can actually start to get strategic. But until you know, number one, until you know the conversation you're here to lead, and number two, until you're consistent in leading it, there's no point in doing a strategic plan. you can't strategic plan your way out of not knowing what your message is if you're a solopreneur. So, but if you're a corporation, and you have a team, or you're on a team or something, and you would like me to come do a strategic plan for you, I would totally be open to a conversation. Let's just see if it's fit. So private message me. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow when we go live again, here's to you strategically planning and getting honest about where you really want to go.